Alright, so tonight is Wednesday, March 7th. What are we going to talk about?
We are going to talk about the first failure you had in your football career.
First big one?
Well, epic fail. I mean,
My
go big or go home,
My first rejection.
I guess.
Okay. It's pretty easy to think of the first big one.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure my brother and I at one point were both going to the Crystal Palace Center of Excellence.
So just generic excellence, or?
Which basically means, therefore, a top flight football club and one of the few regional places where they will train young kids in the hope of finding the next big thing.
And how old were you, roughly?
Let's say early teens.
Okay.
Ish. Yeah. Sounds about right. And used to have it in Bracknell, which is about as exotic as it sounds. So how was Louise?
Louise was fine. Just needed her pinky back.
Good deal. So they had it in Bracknell. Basically be a sort of one main road between Reading and Bracknell, and a couple of roundabouts later, and before you know it, you're pulling into this
Center of Excellence.
What's it? A leisure center.
Mm-hmm. Is everybody wearing leisure suits?
Yes. No, I think the nearest thing here would be a big YMCA gym. And at the back, there was these god-awful AstroTurf pitches, like the first generation, which closest I can describe that is like pouring a hard concrete slab, putting like the thinnest carpet you can imagine on top of that, and saying, "Alright, go and kick a ball around on that."
Like somebody's porch.
Right. So went there for, I don't know, a few years. I'm a bit hazy on when it began and exactly when it ended. But certainly in my early teenage years. Until one summer.
And what happened that summer?
I remember we were living in Early on Silverdale Road, and I remember even the room I was in when I made the phone call, I basically called the guy that ran the Center of Excellence over the summer after everything had shut down, and said, so when do we start training again, later in the summer? And he said, his name is Andy Ritchie, big tall lanky guy, really, really skinny, with the worst haircut I've ever seen in my life. I remember him saying, well, we're going to start practicing again in like the next 3 weeks or so, but every boy's going to get a letter in the post, sort of explaining what's happening next season. So I basically said, alright, thanks very much. It was at my age, sort of totally over my head that he would say that and what it would mean. But of course, a couple of weeks later, I get a letter that's basically saying thanks, but no thanks. Not sure you're the right fit for us and that kind of thing. So all of a sudden, I was like, oh crap. I'm sure for at least some small portion of time, maybe just a nanosecond, it probably crossed my mind if all the football stuff was worth it. But then before I knew it, it felt like I ended up with Reading, which was of course much more local. and had me playing with guys that I played with when I played club and for my school. So it's a swift transition. I suppose that's good because it didn't give me much time to sort of ponder on what happened. So I started up with Reading. By that time, Martin was about to start his traineeship with them, which 2-year commitment, minimum wage, basically less than minimum wage, where you have a greater chance of hopefully becoming a pro. He was just starting that whole thing, and I started at Reading. We would train usually on a Monday night, and then have games sort of at random intervals. We pick up a game against another team's under 15s or whatever it was, you know. And the funny thing was that I suppose that I could say that the letter made me try harder.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like an immediate, like, that's it, I'm going out the door, I'm going to train.
I'm going to start running 5 miles a day,
Right.
50 sprints.
Right, it was more of a sort of gradual change. And at that point in time, my brother was also so obviously big into the football, so it was sort of got sucked into it without really pondering on the big elbow I just received over the summer. But I remember playing our district school team, which is basically Reading as an entire city. The school team that we had for under 15s and under 16s, we all pretty much played together on the school front, and we got into a national tournament for like under 16s national tournament for school districts. It's like the country's playoffs, basically.
Yeah.
So I remember playing a couple of crazy games along the way. I remember being down on the coast playing a game, and it was really misty outside, and you know, night game, the lights were on, and it just felt like the sea mist was just howling in over the field. But the games I remember most happened at Reading's old stadium, which was Elm Park. Which, if you imagine an old, not dingy, but an old industrial city with housing, those terraced houses and those really long streets, just as far as the eye could see. You sort of go in a maze of those streets, and all of a sudden there's just this big old football stadium with like corrugated iron roofs and stuff, you know. It's kind of funny thinking back to that. But in this national tournament, we would have our home games, we would play them there. And the district school team, if we had a big game, we'd play them there. I just said that, but it just so happened that the year that I was in the under 16s team was the year that we went in through this cup competition really far. That's my small claim to fame when I played against Rio Ferdinand. And then it also happened to be the centenary of the founding of the Reading Schools boys team, or the Reading FA, whatever they're called. Obviously meant a big deal to me.
Yeah.
So to mark the occasion, they had us play a game against the England under 16s team.
Wow.
And we played at Elm Park. And remember it because there's I forget the name of the stand, but opposite the main stand at Elm Park, I think where you stood to sing was called the Shed, but I could be wrong. But where I would stand to watch Reading play, that stand wasn't by any means full, but there was certainly quite a large group of people there, so it was kind of crazy. And I remember it because I had probably the best game of my life.
So the biggest crowd you ever played in front of?
Yeah.
And what made it the best game of your life?
Well, it's funny, not to be too graphic, but in the run-up to this game against the international team, I caught a bug. And my dad and I had sort of arranged the morning of the game that we would go over to this little goalkeeper shop and sort of get me a new pair of gloves, you know, ready for the game that night.
It sounds like luck-breaking kind of activity.
Well, it was another kind of almost break-in because I had a very upset stomach in the morning. I remember that was the first time. This is just such a totally random memory, but I think that's the first time I ever had those like tight sports shorts.
Compression shorts?
Yeah, like what they use in the UK it was Lycra, or what's it, sort of spandex, or the Under Armour stuff these days. I had a pair of those that were padded. I think for the first time. The whole time I've been playing in goal. And I remember, because of my upset stomach, thinking, it's just as well I've got some tight compression shorts. Because I'm really not feeling that great. Well, anyway, warm up for the...
This has been a theme through your life, huh?
Almost. Well, so before the game, in fact, before the day of the game, we were told that because in exhibition we would get equal time. So there was two goalkeepers, and I would get the first half, and he would get the second half. So I went out, somehow managed not to have an accident. And the whole time I was warming up, and the game started, and I just remember feeling like I knew where somebody was going to shoot before they even hit it. Not that that meant I could just walk over casually and wait for a shot to arrive in my arms, but it made me, I feel, it increased my ability to get shots that I otherwise wouldn't have.
Makes sense.
So I just, like I say, felt like I was on fire. Felt like it was the best game I'd ever had. I remember probably the only time this has ever happened. A shot from the right-hand side. Alright, so I was in the, if you sit in the main stand, I was in the right goal. And as I'm standing in goal off to my right at about a 45-degree angle, a guy whips in a shot to the far post to my left. And I remember jumping for it and thinking at the same time, there's no way I've got any hope with this. I'm just sort of making it look good for the cameras. But I somehow got a fingertip to it, and it went out for a corner. And of course, if you're in midair, like arching to get a fingertip on the ball, as you're landing, it's not like you can sort of turn and see where the ball lands. So to this day, I couldn't tell you how close it was, but it was close enough for the people in the other stand to like ooh and sort of half gasp. So I don't know if I've ever reflected on that moment, but I just started thinking of it. Anyway, it turns out it wasn't just a stomach bug, it was like a virus that I got because at halftime the other keeper went in, Clive Little, and it was my turn to sit out, and I remember the team leaving the changing room, going back out into the tunnel and up to the field, and me just thinking, alright, I'm so tired, I'm just going to take my time and put on something warm and go and sit on the bench. But so I knelt down to the kit bag under the trainer's table in the middle of the room and was digging out stuff, and I found this nice big puffy jacket and put it on, and I basically just sort of passed out almost, like just fell asleep out of exhaustion
In the training room or out
in the middle of the changing room under the trainer's table. I just curled up asleep. Like I just physically did not have any energy. It was weird. It just hit me like a brick wall.
Huh.
And next thing I know, guys are coming in and seem to be pretty happy with how the game went, and general positive level of or good level of excitement.
Did you win?
I think we might have drawn 1-1 or maybe 0-0.
It's not bad.
Yeah, I think everyone played their socks off that night. And I remember the first couple of guys through looked at me really strangely, asleep in the middle of the floor.
As
But
you would.
it took me just almost a couple of moments before I felt right as rain again. It was so bizarre. I just needed apparently a 45-minute nap.
I wish I could have been there.
Yeah. Well, the thing that made it so memorable.
I would have been a scrawny get though. You would have been interested in that.
Well, the thing that made it so memorable is as I'm leaving, I step out into the street from the main stand. And I think I was looking for my mum and my brother, because my dad had caught the same bug, but so I had it in reverse. So he had a really upset stomach that night. And I remember looking for my mum and my brother, and I'm walking down the street looking for them along the side of the stand. Andy Ritchie was standing in a doorway, and he tried to exchange a very positive hello with me, and it almost felt like he was starting to say, looking really good out there, and I said, hey Andy, good to see you, and just kept on walking, and that was a very good feeling.
I bet. So what did all that teach you?
It's funny, I'd like to give you a cliched quote about never giving up, but I'm not sure that's what I got from it, at least not at the time. I think at the time what I was experiencing and the mindset I was in is just not to focus on the here and now, but almost not to dwell on the bad thing that had happened. It's like, I think if I had, let's say I have a sort of feeble response, not feeble, but a weak response where I go to pieces and I just, I'm completely unsure if I'm ever going to want to play again. It wasn't like that. It was just sort of suddenly a knock, and not a good thing, but I feel that my lesson would just be to keep plugging away. I think you'll get what you want.